Hello everyone, hope you're having a nice day. This is Celine and today we're going to go over music and sound effects. First of all, this lecture is going to be a brief introduction to this topic. I'm going to share a few words about the importance of music and sound effects, which we already know subconsciously as gamers, but I just want to hammer down why good music and sound effects can be game-changing, quite literally. I'll introduce music conceptualization, which is basically how to design music. I will also give you guys a guide and some tips on creating music and sound effects for video games. Then we'll talk about soundscapes. Okay, so why is music so important? Music can create emotions and establish the tone of the story, just like how it does in films and in real life. It can all boil down to one line. Music helps set the mood and immerses the player into the game. For example, Animal Crossing has very calm and relaxing music because it is supposed to be a chill game that lets players relax and farm, fish, and so on. There's also To the Moon, a great RPG Maker game with a great storyline, but the music just adds so much more emotions to it that I cried watching one of the scenes. I won't spoil it, but you guys should definitely play it. Then there is Doom, the game where you fight demons. Music sounds very heavy metal like that, it really gets you pumped up and ready to beat those things. And Undertale, another great example, has a wide variety of music that sets different moods. There's a warm, cozy music when you're home. There's also this intense, exciting battle music, Megalovania, when you fight Sans. So on and so on. There are so many great games with great soundtracks out there. I'm sure every one of you guys can name a bunch of games with amazing music. But how is music in video games different from other music if I just said it is like music in films and in real life? First, music in video games needs to loop. It should loop seamlessly, which means in many cases there won't be an obvious beginning or ending to it. Second, it needs to react to player actions accordingly. Take Fire Emblem as an example. They have two versions of every song. Although they mostly have the same melody, they're composed so that they bring out different feelings. One's more hyped and one's more calm. They play different tracks depending on what you're doing at the moment. Are you fighting an enemy? The music goes ham. Are you just admiring the floor tiles? It chills. Now that you know exactly how important music is, you must be wondering, how do I make it for my own game then? Hold that thought. Before actually making music, you should design it first, which leads to this, music conceptualization. Music conceptualization is necessary for setting the stylistic and functional goals of the music. Imagine it like making blueprints for a building, but music. You need to first understand the art style, storyline, tone, and atmosphere of the game, then identify the functional goals of the music. Is it used to identify a location? Is it used to introduce and portrait characters? Is it used to communicate an event, or is it used to alter dramatic tension? Then you will decide on the genre and mood of the music that you're creating. For example, if the game uses pixel art, you will usually use 8-bit arcade-style music. If the game belongs in the horror genre, you will probably want to add a lot of squeaky elements and add echoes. Let's move on to sound effects. Just like music, it also helps set the mood of the game. It gives cues to the players, like sound cues. Let's say the player pulls a lever and they hear a door opening. They will look for an open door, versus if they hear a chest or a lock click, they will look for a chest and expect some loot. Sound effects also provide instant action feedback to the players. You stab an enemy, you can either hear the sword piercing through their flesh or their scream. That provides a lot of satisfaction in the gameplay, just like in Mortal Kombat. If the punches were empty, you will feel like you aren't hitting as hard. But because the sound effects are so well done, the punches will sound like they're actually landing on bodies and not so empty and weak. So, let's get down to business. How do you compose music? I have summarized the entire process into 5 steps. First, you want to come up with a melody. Make it sound happy if your game is lighthearted, sad if your game is sad. Second, you want to write chords for your melody. There are YouTube videos that teach you what chords are. Check those out or ask me about it if you're interested. I won't talk about that too much since we're a game development class instead of a music theory class. Third, choose instruments for your music. There are commonly used instruments for certain themes. Drums and percussion for earthy levels, flute for air levels, etc. A good example would be Mario. If you listen to the background music for the element-themed levels, you will catch on to a lot of different usage of instruments. Listen to this and feel the music. The music belongs to an earth level. You might have guessed by the drums in the background that created a jungle feeling. The right instruments can deliver the theme of the level. The music doesn't even have to be good. Then you distribute the chord notes to the instruments you choose. Adjust them so that it sounds cool. And lastly, perform. You can either play it out with the instruments, which usually cannot be done by one person, or input it into a software. If none of this makes sense, it is okay. Hire a musician or a composer. How to make sound effects? That is easier than composing music if you ask me. Usually people go down two paths. Either tweak sound effects from existing sound libraries or make your own. If you choose to tweak sounds from existing sound libraries, make sure it is copyright-free or royalty-free so you won't get sued and nobody is gonna get in trouble. You can change pitch or speed of the sound clip so it still sounds different from the original clip if you want. And sometimes the sound clips from the internet can sound choppy in the end, as if someone just cut it off. A way to deal with that is to use reverb on the sound clip. Reverb is an effect that basically creates an echo as if you're recording the sound in a large empty concert hall. It is very useful to hide those sharp endings. What if you want to make your own sound effects? You want a decent microphone. The one I'm using right now is pretty good. It's the Blue Yeti microphone. Since most of us aren't working in a professional soundproof studio, make use of the noise reduction effect. What the effect does is obviously reduce noise, mostly ambient noise that is undesired. Just be careful not to use it too much, or it can reduce the sound quality. Lastly, get creative. You can still tweak the audio after you record it. Just like in Mortal Kombat, a lot of sound effects are made by crushing vegetables, snapping your enemy's spine, break a celery, squeezing your enemy's organs, smash a tomato. I'll include a link in the description box down below about how Mortal Kombat made their sound effects. If anyone is interested, go check it out. Some additional tips on sound effects. Let's say you're a sound designer. You want to make sure the sound effects you're designing are in the same key as the music. You want to keep the sounds sweet and short. You don't want them to last too long, especially the ones that happen a lot, like weapon swings, or else the sound will stack and it gets loud and distracting. Also, lower the volume of the clips, unless you're trying to jump scare somebody. Something extra, soundscapes. The idea of soundscape is that it is sound that forms a landscape. It forms and arises from an immersive environment. It should not be consciously listened to, but fade into the background. They are meant to be felt. Let's say your character is on a pier. They will very likely hear waves and seagulls. They walk in a casino. You'll probably hear slot machines in the background. When you add soundscapes to your game, don't have it too overpowering. Hearing a seagull every so often is fine, but hearing it scream every 3 seconds is not fine and very distracting to the player. You also want to select the right sounds, obviously. You would not want to put slot machine sounds on a beach. That kinda doesn't make sense, unless you have a casino on a beach. Minecraft is another game with lots of soundscape designs. An obvious example would be swimming. When the player jumps into water, the background music gets blurred out and they start hearing bubbles as they swim. So technically speaking, soundscapes are sound effects that are designed to form an immersive environment. That's pretty much it. There is some free softwares that I recommend for you guys to try out. Beatbox is great for 8-bit music. Noteflight requires more music background, but is also amazing for orchestral music. There's Audacity and Adobe Audition. Both are audio editing softwares. You can also refer to the resource channel on Discord for more information. So, to conclude this lecture, these are a few points to take home with you today. First, music and sound effects are there to create an atmosphere and immerse the player. Second, make music and sound effects responsive to the player actions. Last but not least, design music and sound effects according to the game's needs. That being said, today's lecture is over. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, please ping me or staff in Discord. And don't forget to fill out the quiz after. Otherwise, stay safe, wash your hands, and I'll see you all soon.